Welcome to the Deep Six podcast, where we make a generational impact on you and yours. What we do here is explore a 6-point model into your health, your life, and your journey while you're here. So let's dive deep and help you thrive, not just survive. Well, welcome again. Thank you for joining us here on the Deep Six. And I brought back a guest that is, well, she didn't have a choice to be here because she's employed through me. So,
True.
but this was not under too much duress, right?
No, not at all.
Okay. Well, welcome back. Thank you so much
for having me again.
Joining us again. Lauren Zessin, who was on last year, and she's a nurse practitioner with us. And how many years have you been with us?
4.5.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Through SVT and pregnancies and Addison crises.
Yeah.
And
lots of my own crazy health
and then
stuff.
thousands of patients satisfied with your treatment. You know, people love you. You're awesome. And
Thank you.
And, I do really value you coming back on. So very cool. But just, for listeners out there today, this is a difficult one for me, this episode, because it's something, and I'll tell you a funny story about my experience with this, but we're going to talk about yoga. And we're going to talk about mindfulness and meditation, but why we should be doing those things.
Yeah.
Like, why those should, especially in 2025, be incorporated into our, lifestyle, our daily routine, which is so, foreign to me. But yet I've done it, okay? And it's the hardest thing for me to do, okay? It's very easy for me to work out and go, and you know what I mean? And I think nowadays, that is a really hard thing and like an art to like really focus on. And you are a certified, trained expert in this field.
Taught yoga for many, many years.
Right, exactly. And, I've caught you many times just posing in the office. No.
I do.
That would be actually funny. I would get a kick out of that, though, if I just walked by and saw you doing like downward dog or something, But we talked about this off air and just how we should really cover this, and because it's something that's big. And I'll tell you, I had a big underappreciation of yoga or this type of movement, relaxation, mindfulness, this type of stuff. I really didn't value it until under duress, my wife made me go to a session, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So, but anyway, tell us though a little bit though, and then I do want to start. I always start the show with a quote, and kind of we dig into that a bit. But tell us kind of how you've been. I know you've been busy.
Yeah, I've been busy. We're at the office. It's been super busy seeing patients, which has been fantastic. We're expecting another little one this summer.
Oh, I thought you just took a lot of steroids.
Yeah, if that weren't the case, it would have been a lot of steroids. So that's really exciting.
Congrats.
And
that's exciting. Very exciting.
It's been really good.
Mm-hmm. And this time around, so far, knock on wood, you have not had. So this is what a trooper you are, man. I'm telling you, you are so devoted to your patients too. And you should share some stories about this. This is unbelievable.
It was funny.
On your first pregnancy with us and working, you're ticking along and, going into SVT. So for listeners out there, that's like your heart rate going up, Yeah, what we
Mine would go to 270.
Oh, 270, nothing, And while she's working, seeing patients and feeling it, right?
I would have to crawl out of a room so I wouldn't faint.
but you would be like, I'll be right back. I'll finish your visit. And she's carrying her laptop, and people would come rushing to get me in another room, and I'm like, what's going on? They're like, Lauren's an SVT, and you're like, I got this.
I'm like, Dr. Lewerenz is an ER doc. He's got it. Yeah. He would help get me out of it, and then I felt like I could go back to work.
Yeah. Well,
practicing some stoic principles. I was trying.
Well, and we did some carotid massage, right? And did you do cold water stuff? I can't remember what we did, but it did
one
take
of
you
our
out of
amazing medical assistants would like splash water on me, bring me ice, and then try to massage. Yeah. And the combination usually worked until the end.
Yeah.
And then I had our manager said, you can't come in anymore.
Yeah. Susie, our office manager at Longevity Health Institute, said, Doc, hey, I got to pull you aside here. Come on. Yeah, she's a liability. Her heart rate's like flying. But you are so tough as you are. You're so tough that you are literally, this is so funny, is you would come out of it after these techniques. And again, if you're go into SVT, this supraventricular tachycardia, and you do carotid massage, you hold pressure on your carotid in that, cold water sometimes to the face or to the carotid. Sometimes Valsalva, like grunting, holding your breath, bearing down.
Yep.
You can get your heart out of it. And it would work.
It would work.
And you would like, all right, I got to go back in there and finish her visit. She's waiting for me.
My patients still remember.
Oh, of course they do. You traumatized them.
It's funny though, like, because what we'll talk about today, I was able to withstand those episodes later in my pregnancy. Like some of them would last an hour and I was hospitalized, but I could withstand it from practicing yoga because I would actually do like a yoga breathing.
Oh.
And keep myself calm during it. So it was interesting. That kind of gave me the space to deal with very intense discomfort.
Yeah, that had to really...
It really helped.
Yeah, that had to feel...
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there, right? And your heart's just flying. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Never had this.
And you're very like blacking out a little as it happens. So it feels like you're dying. Yeah. It's not good.
Wow. Unbelievable. Well, thank goodness you're not having this now.
Yeah, I had a procedure and it's gone.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
It was amazing.
And you're having a beautiful pregnancy. You're beautiful as ever.
Thank you. And it makes this pregnancy feel
feel easy.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, great. Well, today's, segment here and topic, because of the 6-point model we do, are building this foundation for our patients. I just thought, and with your expertise, this is a great time and place to like put in some of these because they're, to some people, very foreign, very, and they're hard things, especially if it's not your daily routine and, something that doesn't resonate with you. You know what
exactly.
I mean? And so we're going to talk about yoga. We're going to talk about meditation a bit, mindfulness, de-stressing. And then I do want to cover also like, what happens when we're all stressed physiologically and what are the common things that we see in the practice? Because I was thinking about like, it was just like tick, 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 tick down the list of our world is so stressed and so many people come in, even if they're existing patients and, they're doing great, but then 6 months later they're coming in and it's something, and it's very often related to stress. It's very often like a big stress response. And then what happens to the body in that? So having this kind of, and your SVT is an exact example of this, of how that foundation really took care of you in that moment.
Exactly. You can create space for a lot of discomfort, or something like that could have set me up to be in fight or flight an entire pregnancy had I not used those techniques. So it's really interesting.
Right. Yeah. You it definitely shows, I think, in just who you are, your energy and who you are. You know? I mean, just since I've known you. You know what I mean? So let me, I want to read this quote. I always start the show here with a quote, and this is, I kind of got into Stoicism lately. Every year I start to read some different things and new things. And so this is from Seneca, which is a philosopher, a Stoic philosopher. And it says, the most disgraceful kind of loss is due to carelessness. And an explanation of this is like failure hurts the most when you drop the ball. And don't let your ego make you lazy or entitled. Put in the effort and you'll avoid disappointment. And one of the things in this that just resonated with me, because I've read before and I really stick with, is doing hard things, not just not giving up, but like embracing doing hard things, and kind of leaning into those. And before the show here, we were kind of talking a bit about that and how important it is for the brain, and the brain development.
That's so interesting.
And actually literally doing uncomfortable things you might not necessarily be attracted to or want to do, or it just sounds like, or you're in your zone, your everyday zone. Not that that's, whether it's exercise or it's meditation or it's reading or it's, sleeping habits, or it could be anything, but literally studies have shown you stimulate the anterior mid-cingulate gyrus part of the brain, and the bigger volume of that part of the brain when you do hard things or things that are like awkward,
like uncomfortable.
Yeah. Which makes me think of like when I cold plunge,
That was a great example. Yeah.
And believe it or not, I love it, but I hate it. You know what I mean? So it's not comfortable, and I kind of like make myself do it, but then I love it. But it is. But also though, getting out of like, it could be a different type of exercise. Like I hear people say this a lot, like they hate doing leg day. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And so they avoid it. And you actually work the brain and create like a neuroplasticity when you're, working against that, or you're doing something like that, that you may not really want to do, or it doesn't feel the best, So it's interesting because I put, which doesn't sound like it, but I put yoga into that.
Yeah.
Doing hard,
makes
to me,
a lot of
doing
sense.
hard things.
Well, I'm glad to actually, this is a perfect conversation to have with you, because yoga feels uncomfortable for you. And most people, when they think of the idea of doing yoga, they think of some flexible person who goes in and they're really bendy and doing handstands. And actually, often those are the people who can hurt themselves in yoga, where everyone can benefit no matter how inflexible. Like I taught chair yoga for years, just sitting in a chair, and amazing results from that simple practice. But it would be, 70, 80-year-old men and women who had no clue what yoga was, extremely uncomfortable with the idea of it,
Right.
And had tremendous benefits. So it's really exciting to me, this concept.
Yeah. How did you get into it, though? Tell me how that started, for you.
Yeah. So I did, when I was through college, I taught yoga at Citizen Yoga. So I was trained there, taught yoga there. There's an amazing philosophy background of Vedic philosophy. So I learned and studied, and it's a heavily alignment based. So it was very like anatomical and intentional practice. And then I was working with Dr. Dangovian, who's a cardiologist and always incorporated yoga with his patients. So I taught with patients there, and that was an amazing experience, because you're getting every single age. I would have 90-year-olds in my yoga class, and we taught mindfulness-based practices, yoga practices at all different levels. And I had really amazing outcomes. Like I remember I had one woman who had polio when she was a child and like chronic pain her whole life, couldn't, go on the ground and get back up. Through our practices, was able to eventually, get down on the ground and get back up. It sounds so silly, but that's like can be life or death in someone when they fall.
100%. There's actually longevity studies on this with aging, that the fact that somebody can actually get up off the ground when they're in their, 7th, 8th decade, that alone is a survival task. The fact that, again, she could, if whether she was on the ground or fell or tripped or whatever, she could get back up. Exactly. And that makes me actually think of, so yeah, when I was an ER doc, this reminds me of a story where I literally had a patient that was probably in his mid 70s and 80s, and he had a fall, and this was down at Detroit Receiving, and he was found 2 days later, and he was in rhabdo. He was in rhabdomyolysis.
It's horrible.
And rhabdomyolysis is like where you're basically laying on your muscles, you're laying on your tissue is breaking down, and your kidneys cannot filter this volume of kinase, that's been released from the muscle. And so your kidneys start to shut down and everything. And it was from literally him having a fall. He was conscious, but he couldn't move. To my recollection, I think he broke his ankle or something like that too, but he couldn't get up. So he laid there for at least a couple of days, to my recollection. And he was in the ICU. It was really, and at the time, when you're a young physician, I was.
How could that happen?
I was like, what do you mean he couldn't get up? What are you talking about? But that's real. That's real stuff with aging.
Really commonly.
Yeah.
Where people will be on the floor for hours or even days. So I actually check all my patients as they're getting older. I ask them to get up and down from their chair to see if we need to do PT or yoga therapy or something if I'm thinking they can't get off the ground.
Yeah.
So
That's actually, you motivated me now to kind of focus on that a bit. You know
chair
what I mean?
test. Yeah.
Literally,
It's
because
a good test.
you can be pretty healthy too, and look pretty good, and be in your 7th, 8th decade, and that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Definitely a big issue. Well, so let me tell you though. Let me share with you my yoga story. Okay. And it just didn't resonate with me to I like the energy, the go, and fortunately enough, I'm able to when I'm tired physically, mentally, pretty easy, boom, I'm out.
Sleep.
I can sleep,
Yeah.
and can downshift a bit. I don't have trouble, it's why Victoria really, just I frustrate her, put it that way, because she looks over and I'm out,
It is. It's a nervous system technique to go to sleep and reset, and most of us can't do that.
Yeah, I do pretty well. Actually, I've got that skill down pretty well. But so I'm putting my time into whether it's biking, aerobically, lifting weights, playing hockey, doing some sport, and that resonates with me more. So she does yoga. Maybe once, twice a week. Sometimes she gets more into it and what have you. So she was always trying to get me to yoga. And she's like, vinyasa, that's the hot one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So the room's I don't even know, but in the 80s or 90, I don't know.
80s to 100, yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, you'll like it. You'll sweat. It's harder than you think. I mean, I'm like, yeah, in my head. Oh yeah, honey, I'll go with you sometime, and it's friends of ours that own this studio, which is, Red Lotus.
Yeah. It's a
good,
place.
good studio. Brian's the owner and good guy. And long story short is my mind is like, well, this ain't a workout. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a 45-minute Peloton, on my bike. And I'm going to, no. And then I'm going to, before.
Oh,
and then I'm going to go with her. So as you can, predict. So I do that and I get there. And the funny part is I am, first 10, 15 minutes, a little stiff, a little whatever. And I do stretch. I think it's very important with aging to stretch, stay flexible, work on mobility stuff, all that. But it was, I'm warming up and all that stuff, and about 15, 20 minutes in, and I'm starting to sweat a little bit, and and I'm getting even a little dizzy, and grabbing some water and realizing oh my gosh, this is harder.
This is tough
than I realized. And we're only about, 15, 20 minutes in, and I'm like, so right away in my head, I'm like, man, what was I thinking? And you have to, you don't know the poses that well.
Oh, yeah.
They show you and they work with you. And, I'm looking at Victoria next to me and stuff.
Who's breezing through it.
Oh, yeah. Looking perfect and everything. But it was, first of all, I did like it. It really did like it. But it was harder than I thought. It was like, wow, I was exhausted after, and I was dripping wet. I'm, standing over this pool of sweat, and I'm like, I had no business. I was the rest of the day I was done, tapped out, done, But
it's classic.
Yeah. So that was but I guess I was working on my anterior cingulate gyrus.
That was a perfect example. Learning all of the poses.
For sure.
Very challenging to the mind and to the brain, and creating those neural pathways.
But just so you know, those neural pathways can be created something so simple as, which I do this now, I just started doing this, is I'm right-handed, so I start to do stuff with my left hand.
Interesting.
Eat with my left hand sometimes.
Oh, I would never have thought of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually easier than I thought. I've only missed my mouth a couple times. But but seriously though, it's a little weird feeling, but it's
just doing something that's very different. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. And obviously it gets easier, but that's why, piano and things that,
learning an instrument.
Exactly. Are so stimulating to the brain. So tell us some stories about yoga or about, meditation or mindfulness stuff that, you, what would be the practice, or how would you coach somebody to hey, put this into your routine?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important because it's almost overwhelming to look at, okay, where do I go for yoga, or do I do meditation, and kind of understanding yoga, actually the physical classes, especially vinyasa, is really designed to help prepare us for meditation. So it's designed to help burn out a lot of that like irritable energy that we have, to allow us to then be able to sit at the end in Shavasana and like be able to experience some stillness. So when if you try to just jump into like a mindfulness meditation, especially if you have a busy mind, it's way too much to ask of our nervous system and our body. We're not really prepared to do it per se. So yoga is a really appropriate first step before we even try to do meditation. That being said, mindfulness-based like stress reduction techniques can be really great because you can practice them for 5 minutes. And I think knowing that it's going to be really difficult is part of it. It's going to feel uncomfortable. One of the things I'll have people do this in the office with me. Close our eyes. We'll put a hand on the heart and the belly and do something called like prolonged exhalation. So you inhale for 4 to 5 seconds and exhale for 6 to 7. Mm-hmm. And actually, like this has been studied to significantly lower blood pressure, very significantly, which is cool.
Yeah. That's similar to box breathing?
It's very,
the 4-4-4-4.
Yeah, very similar to box breathing. Instead of like a breath retention at the top, you just go right into exhale and just make it longer. Really appropriate for anxiety. So if someone's like acutely anxious, I don't ever have them hold their breath per se. I'll have them focus on their exhale. Otherwise, focusing on the inhale, you can feel more anxious. Mm-hmm. So having a little bit of guidance with these techniques is helpful, and knowing, hey, the first 20 times I sit in mindfulness, I'm going to be thinking about my lunch or about my kids or about my to-do list. And that's actually the whole practice, is just then going back to your breathing or your body scan over and over, and sitting with discomfort of just sitting there and not grabbing our phone, not looking at something. It's challenging, and it's really, afterwards you're like, wow, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
But I think for some people it feels really hard to just sit, and that's where going to a physical yoga class is really, really helpful. And at the end, you're going to feel it is a meditation. It's a moving meditation.
Yeah. I love that. I love that explanation too. And I never really put that together. But, at the end of the yoga, we did some, breathing and some simple, it was like a 5-minute, meditation.
You lay on your back. Yep.
And that felt good.
Yes.
Where when I try to meditate, and I do occasionally when I have like high stress, and I just, it's really one of those things that I really, really intentionally want to like make it part of my thing, my lifestyle, my daily routine. But I haven't figured out where to fit it in.
How to integrate it.
It sounds so like, what do you mean? You just do it. Well, a lot of it's time. It's like, I really value exercise. I really value strength training. I really value reading, literally writing. Obviously, got to take care of patients. So I'm, always, dialing with that with family and friends and, pets and stuff like that. So my point is, like, where do you put it in and all that? But what I have found is, at least now, I'm not, I guess, call it like, I'm very open to it and really value it and appreciate it. You know what I mean? And anytime I find myself like feeling a little bit, that heightened,
exactly
response, or that irritability, or that like anxiety. And you mentioned blood pressure. I love that you brought that up, because just box breathing, to me, I've done that.
Yeah.
And I have a patient just recently do that, because out of nowhere, she's got a beautiful life, and she's had, borderline hypertension and pretty resistant to medication. So of course I have her on some things like our Berkeley Life stuff, our beetroot extract, and you can do citrulline, which is more favorable than arginine, that increases nitric oxide. Magnesium can help. Obviously we could get into all this, what could help, but she's doing some of these nutraceuticals for her blood pressure, but all of a sudden her pressure was like through the roof, and where I was literally had to send her to the hospital one day, and she's on a low dose, I think, like calcium channel blocker. Anyway, long story short is, you don't know what's going on. You take care of her so she's stable and not gonna, have a stroke or have an event. And what I basically talked to her was, it was just a lot going on in her life. Nothing horrible, but just busy. You know, she's a music teacher. They have a new business they're starting. Her husband retired, but he's doing this construction stuff as a hobby, kind of a second career. You know, there's family stuff, and it's just like, just a lot of plate spinning, a lot of juggling. And she is somebody if I say do it, she does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know. So I said, I really need you to look up, and I sent her a link to it, like what box breathing is. And she's like, I'll do it. I said, I want you to do it 10 minutes twice a day. And it's meditation, really. You know,
it is.
It's breathing in 4 seconds, holding it 4 seconds, breathing out 4 seconds, exhaling 4 seconds. You know, it's at like, that's essentially what the box is. 4, 4, 4, 4 is also what they call it. Anyway, she came back within a couple weeks, and her pressures were way better, and she was diligent about doing it. And it was just our first step to me also having that conversation with her and saying, you know, hey, I think we need to like start to learn to chill out and like to downshift, you know what I mean? And incorporate some of this, because you're such a high driver.
Yes.
You know, you're always, you know, go, and got more to do. And this is classic of an overachiever.
Yep.
You know, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
Well, and the box breathing is really easy to follow too, and to do. And then every time your mind wanders, it's easy to go back to. So it's a really great intervention for that type of thing. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, it was cool. So what else you got for me with yoga? What's or mindfulness or experiences?
Yeah, a lot. So there's some really interesting research that kind of discusses how mindfulness meditation can actually increase your telomere length. So I thought that was really cool because we checked this. Now you're talking to me, baby. All right, this is what I need. Yeah. You know, I mean, I need extended telomeres here. Exactly. That's what we all want, and this is something we check at the office.
Yeah. So for the audience, what a telomere or a telomere length is, they're basically these end caps on your DNA. So we're born with 15,000 base pairs, usually by chronic disease, maybe, you know, even death. 4,000, you know, base pairs, but they break down and they unravel. Your DNA unwinds, and that can't regenerate because of the telomere on the end caps, which are like, I call them, my analogy is football helmets. It's like good football helmets. Okay. You know what I mean? I don't know, on the players.
That's perfect,
so they don't get beat up too much, you know?
Yeah.
I've heard it explained too, is they're like, you know, a shoelace is like kind of wound up, and the plastic end cap, you know. But, you know, when we measure these, like you said in the office, but it keeps your DNA together so that you can regenerate and you can replicate. And it's why the youth and young people are healthier and have stronger immunity and get cut and heal quick, and, you know, or, you know, have less, you know, mortality with infections and
cancer.
Exactly. So protecting your telomeres, especially in an old dude like me, is very important. You know what I mean? I take a telomere lengthener. I take a telomere called TA65. Which is amazing. Astragalus supplement that we see results with, and there's clinical data to support that. But anyway, but you're saying, I'm hearing you say this, and I've not, it makes sense a bit, but I'm like, there's studies on this.
It was originally studied in breast cancer patients, and while they were receiving treatment, they had them do 12 weeks of a mindfulness-based stress reduction. That's basically like a program that was created by several like really great PhDs that just is a program you can follow. Mm-hmm. They did this for 12 weeks, and they found increased telomerase activity, which rebuilds your telomere caps, and then longer telomeres, which is just unbelievable, you know, compared to the control group. So that was something I learned about several years ago, and just inspired me to integrate that into my like daily life. Yeah,
that's so cool. Yeah, because it's not, you know, taking something, and it's not something that's so super obvious. Right. It's like, no, you know, we just need to chill out a bit.
I wondered, like, who thought to study that? I would never even put those two pieces together without having saw that study. And it ties in, then there's a lot of research around autoimmune disease, like decrease in psoriasis plaques, for example, in people who do this program. How can that be related? And it's that mind-body interaction we see. So from primary care, like you were saying, it's so important because we can find sometimes the root cause of maybe like for irritable bowel or something like that. Maybe there was an infection, or maybe there was a food sensitivity, multiple things. And then after we kind of treat that, there's still this like brain gut axis or different mind body connections that can be very dysfunctional. So we can use these practices to then heal that piece of it. And you can do them at home on your own.
No. Yeah, it's so key. It's, back to that telomeres, which is so interesting, is that's like, you're talking about your DNA, like something really deep, finite, you know, like that can really make a change. And, that motivates me even right now, because literally every time you extend a telomere, and this is because I know from our studies that we do with our patients, when you extend a telomere 0.1 kilobase on the end of a telomere, you add 4 years to their life biologically. Which sounds like, well, what does that mean? But it's like, literally, I've seen this where somebody's telomeres that are measured, and in their studies that show like chronologic versus biologic age, in 1 year of doing some healthy things,
it changes.
It'll change. Just their telomere gets a little bigger, tiny bit, but 4 years added on to their biologic age. So I mean, talk about youthful, growing young. That's truly growing young.
Yeah, and it explains why, when, like, touching on, you were saying at the beginning, stress has all of these negative impacts on our health and, physically, our, like you were saying, hair and our skin, and then contributing to diseases like heart disease and these huge, killers in our country.
Yeah. Well, and that's what Dan Govian, the cardiologist that was a trainer of yours, used to share with me.
Yeah.
Is he would see, and that's why he incorporated that into his practice, the yogas, that he would see people do much better, whether it's their blood pressure or their heart health, like on retesting, or people that incorporated that into their life. It was dramatic.
Yeah, I think a lot about, like, I always give this example to patients. If you're sitting in traffic and the person in front of you slams on their brakes, or someone's driving, rudely in front of you, we can't control how other people behave, around us. And yoga or mindfulness teaches us to control our reaction to it so that we don't go into fight or flight over something. It's like that Taoist saying, being angry is like holding a hot stone with the intention of throwing it at someone else. Our nervous system does that too. So if we can not be non-reactive to things we don't need to, we're going to be so much healthier. Because I have patients that, they come in, we're in traffic, their blood pressure's through the roof, and I'm like, well, this is probably happening to you all the time.
Right.
And we're going to do some breathing practices and incorporate some stress reduction so that, like, retraining, we should probably be teaching, children this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, so good. So, well, this is a great topic, great episode. I think the take home is literally just incorporate these things, even if it's here and there, once or twice a week, whether it's, like the box breathing, like I said.
Yeah.
10 minutes morning and night, or even just once a day. I love your suggestion about, just going out to do yoga somewhere, because it sets that intention to. Exactly.
You're going to burn off a lot of irritated, it sounds ethereal, but like a lot of irritable energy that we hold within ourselves. You'll be able to sit. People come out of class and they feel like a different person.
Yeah.
So it's just a really unique practice.
Yeah. No, I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you back again real soon, because we have to talk about something really serious on one of our episodes coming up, because it's how we truly prevent the top 10 causes of death.
I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, that'll be cool. So that's on our next episode, because really that's what we do with our 6-point model. It's really preventing, not just, hey, how do you want to feel and how do you want to, function and what are your goals, but how do we prevent these statistical common causes of death? So a little serious, but also great stuff.
Great stuff. Yeah. We have to talk about it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but you're even more beautiful this year than last year.
That is very kind.
Yes, and Matt texts me that, though, on the way here.
He tells me every day.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining us here on the Deep Six podcast. Join us again back here soon. We're going to go over some deep dives into your health, into our 6-point model, and how to build these pillars so you can truly prevent disease and thrive, not just survive.